I met a gypsy.
I feel like the KTM group did a really good job. Like, they're basically trying to make 3 different motorcycles.
Yeah.
It's the same platform, but it's kind of like in cars, right?
Yeah.
Like, you'll have a company that
Lexus,
make like the chassis, and then it's like, okay, this is kind of this look and this vibe, and then you got this for this. I feel like that's what Austria is doing with the KTM, like, or with those bikes. KTM is like super fast. Like, that's the ready to race bike. And that's pretty much how it feels. It feels like it's got the best motor. It feels, I don't know, like, I love the ergos, like the front, I guess like the front ergos. The Husky has better rear ergos, I would say, like better contact. But yeah, so you've got that bike. The Husky is if you're shorter, like that, it's literally just a bike made for if you're a smaller dude. I feel like it turns way tighter. I would say if you like to sit down and you're shorter, then get a Husky if you want a KTM group bike, basically. And then the gas is kind of right in the middle. Like, it feels more like the KTM, but the bars are softer, the clamps are softer, the wheels are softer. Like, it feels like a KTM that you don't have to run in, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that and the gas would be my idiot's 450. So, like, if you wanted to just buy a 450, don't do anything to it, you want it easy to ride, you're just the average dude that's going to go weekend warrior, gas is probably the one.
Yeah. The only knock on it we gave it is, like, the price, unfortunately. Like, when they first came out with it, it was just right at Yamaha, Cowie, Honda. Now it's jumped up to $10,400. So it's like more expensive it's the same as the new Cowie, which is all new, and they raised the price much more than the Honda, more than the Yamaha, much more than Suzuki. So yeah, like, I'm with you there, but it is a bummer. Like, they put brake tech components on it now, brake tech clutch and brakes. And so the clutch isn't as strong, like, just the actuation, the internals are all the same as KTM, but just the initial pull of it. And then the brakes aren't the same either. So it's a little bit of a bummer that they, like, they have these price point products on there, but then they still pretty expensive, still a little less expensive. I think KTM's 11.1 or something like that. But yeah. But
you think, like, they built it to be the entry level bike, but it doesn't match the entry level prices of the other 450s.
Basically.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And when we were in Austria at KTM, we're like begging them, like, why wouldn't you guys just keep producing old gases? You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I think would be cool.
It would be super cool. But it doesn't make sense. Like, they have an assembly line. They have, frames being made and painted. They have all this stuff that's being made. It would be more expensive for them to continue producing old bikes and just continue to knock out those old bikes and keep inventory and keep producing that, rather than, like, put everybody on the same frame, same swing arm, same general idea. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we begged them, but it didn't work.
Yeah. Because the old chassis, that's what blows me away. You've got to change, and you've got to move forward, and you've got to evolve. But the whole chassis was so sick. Yeah. And so many people liked it. I feel like they pretty much killed it. And then it's like, all right, sweet, 2 years up, let's go next, whether it's better or not.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. I was bummed the first day I rode the factory edition. It's like, dude, the KTM made their bikes worse.
Really?
That's what I felt the first day I rode them. And a lot of people still have that taste in their mouth. I think now, once we know that we got to, like, break them in the frame, and then there are a few parts you could put on it to make it a little bit softer, a little bit better. But honestly, like, I said that the first day, and then for a year we had gas on the old platform, because 23
was
23
still
gas was still the old one, which I was proud. I was stoked for my brother, because he was riding gas in not, Rockstar and KTM were struggling with the old chassis, and my brother had the tried and true, the easy one that everybody knew. You didn't have to change anything. It was good. And, he went on to win San Diego Supercross. He was on the podium a bunch of times, won the first moto at Hangtown. And, so he was killing it on that chassis. And I was, so stoked for him. And, he had no idea. He knew that he was, had an upper hand. Gas, Barsha and him were running the old chassis, so it was better for him than Cooper and the rest of the guys struggling with the new chassis. But yeah, every time I was like, dude, I'm so stoked you're on the old chassis. But now, getting used to the new chassis, it's like, I'm pretty well used to it. All of our guys are we understand the pros and cons. We know how to work through it. We know you need 10 hours on the frame. We knew like sometimes we get air forks that are good right away. Sometimes the air forks are stiff for a couple hours, and like you got to break in all the seals on those. And that was even on the previous frame.
Yeah.
Like we would get a bike that would just be like crazy stiff forks, and you just got to break it in.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how bikes vary as well. Like Pro Circuit, every factory team, they have all these engines that they build, and then they dyno all. We tested Landon Gordon's Super Mini, his Pro Circuit Kawasaki Super Mini, the one he won Loretta's on.
Yeah.
We just posted that video. Even for him, Pro Circuit built him all these engines. They dynoed them all, and the best dyno bike, or the best bike on the dyno, that engine got saved for the most important races, and that was your race bike. So it's the same thing they dyno all the bikes, they save the best one. And I told you the Husky got 61 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's crazy for a stock bike to hit over 60 horsepower. And that's like a horse and a half more than it was. And it's the same engine as KTM, same engine as Gas, but that one just dynoed better. Maybe it was more broke in, maybe it just something happened, on the assembly line that one was a little bit better. So there is those variabilities that you have to like work through sometimes when you're testing. And the biggest thing about being a test rider, and like for me, the benefit I have, and like why I tell people, you should respect or listen to what we have to say about bikes, is like we ride them all stock and we know what each one's like the base level, and then you can make changes and mess with them and see how it does. But I have lots of buddies who are like, well, yeah, I rode a Yamaha here and I rode a Honda here, and I rode a KTM there, and I like the Honda the best. It's like, well, who was it built for? Like, what was the sag set for? I didn't check the sag. Oh, what track were you riding? Well, I was riding, Kahia in the morning, and it was smooth. Well, where did you ride the KTM? Well, it was Glen Helen. It was rough, So there's so many variables, which is why we use, like I said, Glen Helen a lot. It just makes the most sense to like stick with the same spot and take away those variables, because one day the bike could feel great, the next day it doesn't, It's funny how it works.
So what are your improvements that you put on the KTM new chassis? Like, what's your recommendations for people?
Pro Circuit makes a linkage that flips the linkage ratio. So like KTM's more ready to race, and compared to the other manufacturers. And I don't know exactly the linkage curve for each one off the top of my head, but Pro Circuit and Luke Boyk over there, he's a G in your language. And so he developed it, and it basically flips the curve. So like KTM stock is kind of stiff on top and then gets softer as it goes through, which is better for a pro rider. Like they land harder off jumps. They're hitting bigger bumps harder, but you're also not casing jumps as much or not overshooting jumps. So like KTM is the ready to race brand, right? And that's what they don't tailor to XR50s, XR100s. Like they're more tailored towards racing. So that linkage kind of follows that. Like the linkage is more set up to a racer, more set up even to guy riding in softer dirt and stuff like that. So let's say Eli Tomac, or maybe not him, but let's say another top pro, they're going to clear the jumps. They're not going to case it. They're not going to overshoot it. They're not going to have as many crazy, like, oh boy moments, right?
Yeah.
So you can make it kind of stiff on top and then soft as it goes through. But for the average vet rider, you want to make it a little softer on top so that it's more plush and compliant through the softer chop. But if he makes a big mistake, you want it to get stiff so that he doesn't die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. Like, so Pro Circuit makes a linkage that flips that curve, that makes it softer on top, and then it gets stiffer as you go deeper in the stroke. It's more progressive rate linkage. And as far as I understand, like the Japanese manufacturers, that's how they come stock. And so that linkage makes it softer on top, more comfortable. But for me to go race a national, I might be better on the stock linkage than the Pro Circuit one. His is better for an average rider, everyday rider, me at Glen Helen, because I want more comfort rather than hold up.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I like on the KTM. The Luxon clamps have been a big help over the years. I've run those at the two-stroke national a lot.
What offset do you ride on the new chassis? 23.5?
No, I just run the standard.
You ride stock?
Yeah, standard. Yeah. I believe it's 22. I don't know off the top of my head.
I think it is stock, yeah.
I haven't messed with any of that on the KTM. Like, I've never had an issue with the front end feel, so I haven't. We've had the opportunity to try 23.5 like he's mentioned, but I haven't even tried it.
Yeah, I haven't either. I've got 22 X-Trigs on mine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So those are two things, like Luxon, that suspension, and then other things to make it more compliant. FCP engine mounts were helping.
Yeah.
And then just breaking in the wheels, breaking in the frame. Like, it's not that bad stock. Like, once you get past that 10-hour mark and put some time on it, and even that 10-hour mark, like, it's not that bad as long as you know what you're riding and you're comfortable with it.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, gypsytales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.